Welcome to Wanderlust and Wishes, the podcast where we explore the world one destination at a time.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Krystle.
As travel agents with fantastical vacations, we are here to share our passion for travel and help you turn your wanderlust into reality.
From hidden gems to bucket list adventures, join us as we dive into the sights, sounds, and stories of our favorite destinations.
So grab your passport, pack your bags, and let's embark on this journey together.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 97 of Wanderlust and Wishes. Today, we're going to talk through kind of a showdown of cruises versus all-inclusives. When you think about both scenarios, you kind of think about all of the things are included in whatever the overall price is, but they're really two very different types of vacations. So we just wanted to break down the differences and some of the most common questions that we get as travel advisors.
And we're not just going to compare them. We're going to help you decide which one is actually right for you, because they're not a one size fits all, either one of them. Maybe we'll talk through some scenarios and we'll let you know what has some hidden costs, because there are some depending on what you decide to do.
Okay, so first off, before you pick cruise or all-inclusive, you kind of need to know what kind of traveler you are. And we're going to break this into three categories. The do everything traveler. So you want action the entire time. You want constant activities, entertainment. You want a lot of variety. You get bored if you're sitting down and doing nothing. The second type of traveler is the opposite. I just want to relax. I want to sit my booty in a chair by the pool or on the beach. I want to have a drink in my hand, and I just really don't want to do anything. I don't want to have any high energy vibes around me. And also just not really wanting a schedule, just wanting to kind of go with the flow. And then the third one is you kind of want a little bit of both. So you don't fall exactly into category one. You don't fall into exactly into category two. You like a little bit of a schedule, but you do want some flexibility, that kind of thing. You get what I'm saying. If we're looking at it, just kind of making general statements, cruises in general lean more towards structured activity. They have lots of things to do. All-inclusives lean more towards unstructured relaxation. However, you can flip-flop both of them and make them into what you want.
So some questions that we like to ask clients or travelers is, do you like having a plan or going with the flow? Do you get bored sitting still for multiple days? Do you want your trip to feel full or easy?
So, leading in with those questions, let's talk about a specific scenario. So, you're a family of 4. You have kids that are 6 and 12. Both of them have completely different energy levels. If you're looking at a cruise, the strengths in a cruise would be because it has built-in entertainment all day. They have kids clubs and they are segmented by age. So even if you have children that are in different age groups, there's going to be a kids club for them. Parents get breaks, especially if the kids are going to the kids clubs multiple times during the day. You're going to get breaks without extra planning. There are also adult-only areas on the ship where you can go to get away from kids in general, and more specifically, your kids. Evening entertainment is always a thing. There's shows and then there's really no need to plan daily activities. Actually, for a lot of different cruise lines, you don't even know what the plan is and what the activities are specifically on the different days until you're on the ship. So there's not a whole lot of planning that you would need to do beforehand as far as your daily activities go. And then you would just have lots of variety once you're on the ship. So probably a really good fit, and we talked about this a lot, a good fit for this family makeup would be Disney Cruise Line or Royal Caribbean, because they have tons to do on the ship. Obviously, you also have excursions and things like that based on what port you're going to. But you don't have to really think about it a lot. There's so many activities that you just have a preloaded list of things that you could do that day, and you just pick whatever it is you want to do, and you don't have to think too hard about it. On the flip side, some of the trade-offs, I don't want to call it negatives, but just trade-offs where the cabins on a cruise are smaller. So even if you have a decent sized cruise cabin, it's not going to be the same size as what you're going to find at a resort. And if you're putting everybody, like a family of 4 or 5, into one cruise cabin, it's pretty tight. The flexibility, so there's lots of flexibility with the activities that are around, but the schedule itself, like you have things that are scheduled out day by day and your ports are scheduled day by day. So it's not like if you wanted to do your quote unquote beach day on Tuesday and that's a sea day, like you can't really do that. You have to do whatever is scheduled for that day as far as the port goes. That's what you're doing. You are on a ship, so you're sharing a space, although many ships are very large and they do have a lot of room, but you are sharing a space with thousands of people and you can't really leave except for when you get off on your ports. And then if you do want to do excursions at your different ports, that is going to typically be an additional cost and require a little bit of extra thought and planning. So thinking about it from your perspective, Krystle, I mean, you just got off of a cruise. Do you feel like that cruise environment was relaxing and easy? Or I guess what were your like overall thoughts on whether that was a really good fit for that particular situation?
If you would have asked me after day 1 and 2, I would have said it was not relaxing at all because we were doing just as many steps and chaos as the parks. But that was like with check-in and like Pixar Day at Sea. So that was like an outlier. By the end, though, just to kind of be like, oh, do we want to go sit by the pool for a couple hours? Great. But then we were still trying to be like, oh, well, I haven't seen Jessie today and she's only showing it this time. So I need to go make sure I'm ready and in line. So as relaxing as sitting on a beach? No. Is it easier because everything is all right there? We have kids club, buffets, it's all close. Yes. I don't know if that helps anybody, but
yeah, no.
Depending on what you're there for. Let's go to an all-inclusive for a family. And it's funny that we're talking about this because a year ago during Easter, John and I were sitting in an all-inclusive on beach, and I had pictures pop up on my memories that I was like, hey, it's time to go back. So at an all-inclusive, you're going to have easier mornings because there's no rush, there's no itinerary. Kids can nap, you can reset, you can go back out. You have more physical space, not only in your room, but on the grounds. Some of those resorts are very spread out, and you might have 3 or 4 different beach options or 6 or 8 different pool options, and the pools are massive in comparison to ship pools, obviously.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I would say they're probably easier for sensory sensitive kids or for slower paced families. It's easier to find a quiet corner and take a break, take a breath. But on the flip side, your trade-offs, your kids clubs vary widely. Some resorts are better at it than others. Some might not even have it, or if they do, it's for certain ages or just certain times. The nursery age, like the 0 to 3, is really hit or miss at resorts. It's a lot more reliable, like on a Disney cruise. Depending on your resort, if you want a party resort, we can find it. But entertainment is not as strong at night. They might have some kind of pool party going on or some kind of fiesta in the plaza, but it might just be 1 or 2 nights out of the week you're there. So on that same note, after day 3 or 4, it might kind of feel repetitive because it's the same thing over and over. You're not visiting a different port. You're not in a different city or country. It's the buffet, the pool, the beach, repeat. So, asking you, would your kids be happier with constant stimulation, or would they like the freedom to just play and hang out?
Well, the hard part is that I have 2 very different children. One of them doesn't like to sit still for very long, and one of them could sit out on the beach all day. So I think having something that I think one of the biggest benefits of an all-inclusive, at least for one of my daughters, is that not feeling like you're stuck on this contained space, and that you can go to the beach and just, lay out on the beach every day and have space to kind of roam around. But then, like I said, the flip side is, having something to do. Like, I think for us going to an all-inclusive, at least one of my children would want to be doing excursions every day. The other one, not so much. It would be difficult, I think, for us we'd have to mix it up so that we feel like we at least have some family time, and then some time maybe for each of us to do the things that we like to do. Just speaking on a particular example, I have some clients that are going to the Riviera Maya in June, and they're going to an AI that is really geared towards younger children. And when I say younger children, I don't mean babies, because like Krystle said, they don't really have a whole lot when it comes to like nursery. Their kids clubs don't go past 10. So if you think about that, when you're planning, if you're planning for a cruise, if the kids clubs didn't go past 10, like that would be rough, at least in my opinion. So, but thankfully they have children that are in that range. They have children that are 4, 6, and 8, which is great. It's perfect for this resort. But I think it's probably more like kind of Krystle was saying, it's kind of hit or miss, and it's very like niche kind of. You really have to find the right resort that's going to fit your family. And I think the cruises probably cater to everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
In that sense.
Like we've talked about ABBA on here before, and ABBA really has like that small little kids slide that I probably wouldn't send anybody that's like older than 12 there.
Yeah.
But I would send like teens to like Hard Rock Riviera Maya or the Hard Rock Punta Cana, because there's the flow riders, there's like the bounce houses and the game rooms and like that older. So this is where working with the TA really comes in, because we know these resorts, and like if you just pick it on the fly out of the blue because the pictures are pretty online, and then you get there and be like, oh, well, there's nothing for my kid to do.
Yes.
That could ruin your entire vacation.
Just in Riviera Maya alone, there's like 400 plus resorts in that area. It's insane. It's a lot. And that's just in one little section of Mexico.
So now let's talk about the time when you finally get a trip without your kids. What do you want it to feel like? So, for example, some of our favorite resorts, Sandals, obviously, they have always been like the top tier. Another brand, Hyatt Zilara, they have some good ones around. Again, you have those slower mornings. You don't have the pressure, no constant spending decisions, just the romantic atmosphere built in, less stimulation, more presence. This is the kind of vacation where you actually unplug. And these are adult-only resorts. So you're not going to see the kids. Like, you're there for each other.
Just like to make a point, and we kind of talked about this a little bit when we were talking about adults-only vacations on some of our previous episodes. There's definitely a difference between an adults-only resort and an adults section of a resort. So a lot of these resorts have an adults section that is geared towards adults, but you still, if you go into other areas of the resort, if you want to go into the different sections, you still are probably going to see kids. If you stick to just the adult area, then you're fine. But there are adult-only resorts where, like Sandals, there are no children there. Okay, so let's flip over. Same scenario as far as adults, but we're talking about a cruise. And like I said, we did talk a little bit about this previously. Virgin Voyages is going to be our perfect example for an adults-only cruise, just because there's truly no children on board. It's not just an adult section of the ship. Virgin Voyages in general is going to have more energy, nightlife, shows. You're going to get to see multiple destinations because you're on a cruise. So you're going to have multiple ports. It's a very social environment. Although I will say you can choose to be as social as you want or not social as you want. So you could participate in a lot of these things if that's what you want to do. But if you just want to like chill, like you can obviously still like go back to your room or maybe go back to a space that's a little bit less energy. There's different areas on the ship where you can maybe find a spot and it's not quite so social. However, so looking at our trade-offs for being on a cruise in general, similar that we talked about before, you are on the ship with a bunch of other people. There's only so much privacy that you're going to get. Even if you want to hang out in your room a lot, at some point you got to leave your room. And you're going to see other people, and you're probably going to see a lot of other people because you're on a cruise ship with thousands of other people. Sometimes cruises can feel a little transactional because, yes, there are certain things that are included in your cruise fare, but there's other things that you have to pay extra for. That's actually one of the things, plugging our last episode with Margie, talking about Princess Cruise Line. With Princess Cruise Line, you have the ability to kind of put everything into your cruise fare using some of their different options that they have so that you don't have to feel like you have to pay for everything. It's all included in whatever you paid up front. For this particular topic of adults, are you looking to, is this a like reconnection of either you and your spouse or significant other, or maybe of a group of friends? Are you trying to reconnect? Are you trying to have fun? And you can do both of those. You can reconnect and have fun, or you can reconnect and relax, and it can be more chill. I feel like from a reconnection standpoint, if I'm thinking about doing something like that, I think I typically am going to picture an all-inclusive for that like reconnection type of vibe. What do you think? Because I mean, you and John, you went to Punta Cana last year for that very reason.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to make time for each other when you're not trying to make time for activities.
Right. Because there's not as much of a schedule. Getting into the nitty-gritty of the budgeting versus where the value is in each of these options. And this is where you can, if you're not looking at everything, the whole picture, you may make the wrong choice and then be, not be happy once you go. In my opinion, if you're going on vacation, everything is just lovely, but sometimes, there's better vacations than others. So if you're looking at breaking it down from a cruise standpoint, if you're looking at the budget and the value, using Disney Cruise Line and Royal Caribbean as an example, just as an example, you're going to have your basic or your base fare. So what's included in your cruise fare, you're going to have your gratuities that are going to be added on automatically. You have on Royal Caribbean, you have drink packages. Disney Cruise Line does not have drink packages. So that's another thing, like where Disney, if you're getting alcoholic beverages, or specialty drinks, you're paying extra for those when you're on the ship and you need a budget for those. With Royal Caribbean, you do at least have the option to do a drink package. I think depending on how much you feel like you're going to use it, is whether you get the value out of it. Because if you're not someone that's going to do a ton of specialty drinks and alcoholic drinks, then it makes no sense for you to buy a drink package. We talked about excursions. Those can be a huge added cost depending on what it is that you want. Adding on something like a cabana, that's really expensive unless you are splitting it amongst multiple staterooms, maybe 2 families or something. Those can be really expensive. Royal Caribbean has Perfect Day, and there are certain pieces of it that are included in your cruise fare, but the water park is not free. You have to pay for that. That's an added cost if you want to enjoy that or experience that. You do have the option to pay for that beforehand and get like a discounted rate or whatever. They'll run specials and things like that on it. With Disney, your islands are all of that's included for free, but the different excursions and experiences that you add on, those are at added cost. Specialty dining, I think this is a big one. Depending on the cruise line that you're on, you get your like regular dining or dining room, depending on the cruise line, as part of your cruise fare. But a lot of times you have particular restaurant that you want to go to and it's not included. It's extra. And it's not typically super cheap. Those specialty dining restaurants are pretty expensive. So that's definitely another added cost if that's something that you want to do. Wi-Fi is so expensive. I mean, I think it depends on which cruise line you're on, but a lot of times you have to pay per device. Sometimes you can pay for Wi-Fi and you can like switch around the devices, which that's really nice when you're able to do that and you don't have to actually pay for each individual device that you're using. And then you have travel protection. We're always going to recommend travel protection. That can really save you in an emergency, but it can be pretty expensive and you need to think about that as part of. A lot of people forget about that when they're thinking about the cruise price. They're looking at the base fare and they're not looking at all these added things that you don't realize cost extra money, and they're not really truly all included with the cruise. Your port fees, those also are not included in your cruise fare, and those, depending on where you're going, can be really expensive. For the Caribbean, for the most part, they're not terrible, but there are some locations that can be pretty pricey, and you want to remember that cruise price that you see if you're just like looking around online and it's like, $100 per person, per route per day or whatever, whatever they're advertising as the cost, that's not actually the cost. That's like the base. And then anything else that you add, if you do nothing else, you do absolutely zero other things, which, maybe you do, then aside from port fees, and then if you wanted to add travel protection, like that's going to be it. But yeah, there's a lot of added costs to cruises.
I always have a lot of clients who are like, oh, I found this cruise online for $550. Can you match that? And I'll go look. I'm like, what are you looking at? Because I'm seeing like $950. Well, they'll send me like a screenshot and I was like, okay, you need to go all the way to checkout. Do you have taxes, fees, port expenses, gratuities? Like, did you actually select a room, or are you just going off of this is what it could be?
Yeah. Did you add prepaid gratuities? Did you add a Wi-Fi package? Did you do like all of these other, are you going to want to drink a soda? Because other than Disney Cruise Line, if you want soda, you're going to have a drink package for a cruise.
All right. So let's talk about some all-inclusive cost breakdown using the Hyatt and Sandals again. For the most part, most of your daily spending is going to be included. It's a more predictable cost once you're booked because you don't have the mandatory gratuities, your port expenses, you're not paying for Wi-Fi, but some things you may pay for: flights, transportation to and from the resort, your excursions will be extra, any extra spa time, some top shelf alcohol or specialty drinks. Like if you want a pina colada in a pineapple, they're going to charge you for the pineapple. Like that's going to be a little bit above what's included. I would still say that you're going to have a little bit of gratuities because I would still take cash and tip your bartenders and your poolside service. Like you're not going to 100% get out of gratuities, but it's going to be a much smaller portion of your budget.
We're going to talk through a couple of scenarios just to kind of talk you through, based on this, what might be the better option for you. So question number 1, how much do you typically spend on drinks? Are you someone that you want to have a drink in your hand while you're at the pool all day? Or you like to have a drink with dinner, or like those kinds of things? If that's something that you like to do, if that's something you typically do, then an all-inclusive, as far as that goes, would be a better fit, because in most cases, you're all-inclusive. The drinks are going to be included. You're going to have a mini bar in your room that's included with the resort cost. You're going to basically be able to get however many number of drinks that you want at the pool during the day. You're going to be able to get a drink with dinner.
Our next question would be, do you always book excursions? And if that is the case, if you do, Maybe a cruise would be a better option for you. You're going to be in a different port every day. You're going to have different cities to explore. There are just going to be a lot more things to do, where at an all-inclusive, usually you're in a different country, you're behind like locked gates and you can go do something, but usually it's a lot harder to set up and go do, and you're just going to stay at the resort grounds. Maybe leave once. Where at a cruise, you're getting off every day. There are all different sorts of options.
And a lot of times, which I think this is so hilarious, a lot of times for an all-inclusive, the excursion is to go to another resort and use their water park. So you're not really, it's not like a true excursion. You're going somewhere else and you're basically spending the day, you're paying to spend the day at another resort that you're not staying at and that you haven't already paid for. I just think it's funny that that's what happens a lot. The next question is dining experiences. So if you like kind of higher end, higher tier, upgraded dining experiences, yes, you have that option on a cruise. And sometimes you can get packages that include those things. And it is technically included in your cruise fare. You do have that option, just like we talked about with Princess last week. You have an option to do their Princess Premier, and it does add to your cruise cost. But once you pay for your cruise, it is included. You don't have to worry about it once you're on board paying for that part. However, if you're looking for it to be just included in the base price of whatever it is that you're doing, all inclusives typically include, and again, this also varies based on the resort, but for the most part, all of the restaurants on property are included in whatever the resort fee is or whatever the resort cost is. And you don't have to pay extra for that. You may have to make sure that you get a reservation because it might be a super popular resort it may be a super popular restaurant because it's so higher end and it can be difficult to get in there, but you're not going to pay extra for it.
Some of the best food of my life was in Mexico at Unico. And we had something different every single night. We had teppanyaki, we had Mexican, we had all different kinds. It was delicious.
I think that the food on most cruise lines is good, but I think your restaurants that are that are included, it's not like over the top crazy good. It's usually those specialty restaurants where you're going to get that upgraded feel for dining. And in most cases, you do have to pay extra for that. We actually talked about like whether we would do a comparison on pricing. And then we realized it's really difficult to do that because you may have a budget of, $5,000. That's going to get you so many different things depending on what it is that you like and what you want and what you need out of the vacation. And like I was saying earlier, there's over 400 resorts just in the Riviera Maya section of Mexico. That's a lot of variety. There are very budget friendly all-inclusives, and there are very high-end all-inclusives. And depending on what it is you're looking for, that $5,000 is going to get you different things. Same thing with a cruise line. Depends on the cruise line. And it depends on whether you want the extra drink package or you want to do the excursions and all of those things. So the better value is going to be dependent on what you value.
Yeah, it's so hard because there's so many different brands and different times of year could change things dramatically. Your number of travelers. This is why you just give us your budget and we can find something that fits. So how all-inclusive are they really? With Disney Cruise Line, you are going to pay extra for your alcohol, your excursions, your spa, your photos, your specialty dining.
If we flip over to all-inclusive, things that are extra for the beaches resorts are going to be your excursions, your spa treatments, any premium upgrades. And a lot of times that is more of a room type. There's kind of the concierge level room types. And those are going to be obviously more expensive and they're going to hit your pocketbook pretty hard. Off-property costs, things like golf, sometimes things like water sports and things. It's not necessarily an excursion, but it's something you like do a rental or something, it's going to be an additional cost for you to do that. When looking at the two scenarios on a cruise, a lot of your added costs are going to be on board, the additional cost. For your all-inclusives, your added costs are going to be outside of the resort versus within the actual like resort property itself. So really, for this particular topic, I think the big takeaway is that you're not choosing which one is a better vacation because they're both fantastic options. You're choosing the one that's a better fit for you and which one is a better value for you and that you're going to get the most out of. And kind of going back to the type of vacationer that you are, how do you make that fit these two different options? As always, if you're interested in either a cruise or an all-inclusive, or you're not sure and you're just trying to figure out which one is going to be the better fit for you, we would love to chat. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that this was helpful for anyone that's thinking about these two options. We hope you have a fantastic week, and we will chat with you all next week. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wanderlust and Wishes.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.
And remember, the world is full of wonders waiting to be explored. Until next time, happy travels.
Bye for now.